What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a great evening. I know I am. I just wanted to sit down here real quick and kind of introduce you to this new window manager I found. It's actually pretty cool, and I'm going to go over a couple of things that I like about it, and so we're just going to take a look at it. I've already got it semi-configured, just because when you install this, it does not automatically generate a configuration file. It gives you an example file you can put in there, which I did, and then started playing around with it just to kind of get it up and working and actually usable, so that way I can actually show you the window manager. Otherwise it was hard for me to record and edit the configuration file and stop recording and then start recording again, edit something. So it's just easier this way. We'll just kind of go over the documentation, and I will go over the configuration file, kind of show you how to do things in it, and kind of introduce you to it. So that being said, let's just go ahead and launch a browser. So I'm going to press Alt-R, which is going to launch dmenu, and we're going to launch Brave. And once we get Brave up and going, we are already on the web page we need to be on, which is at github.com, and then /vaxerski, which I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. If I'm not, I apologize. But it's VAXERSKI, and then /Hypr, HYPR. So again, it is Vaxerski Hypr. If we scroll down here, you can see this big letters here, Hypr, and what we got is a dynamic Linux tiling window manager for Xorg. It is written in XCB with modern C++. Now I'm going to stop right there, because if you guys have watched my channel or followed me at all on YouTube, you know that I am planning on a long-term project, and I put out a couple options for people to vote on, and they decided a window manager was what they wanted to see, which is great. I'd love to learn how to build a window manager. I don't know the first thing about building one. I can configure them just fine, but building one is a completely different story. That being said, I am also not proficient in any programming language. The only reason I am choosing to do C++ is because I am going to school for my bachelor's degree right now, and the programming courses I'm taking are focused on C++. Not because I like C++ better than any other language. I don't know enough about any languages to know which one is the best, but this degree plan that I'm taking, this is the one they chose to go with. So the fact that this is written in C++ is really cool for me, because this is going to kind of give me an idea of what I'm going to need to do when it's time to build, or when I decide to start building my window manager. So that being said, it's really cool. It's got some features. It's got parabolic animations, which is cool if I actually launch another window. So if I do Alt and hit Q to launch a terminal, you can see how it just kind of slides the window over and puts a new window there. And if I hit Alt-C, the window slides back out of place. So that's really kind of cool. It's got some neat animations that go on. It says it can have rounded corners, but when I change that in the configuration file, the corners don't round, so I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if it's just got an issue or a bug that's not working. I did notice in the issues on their GitHub page here that somebody was mentioning that rounded corners don't work, but I didn't follow up on it. Just not yet anyway. The config is reloaded instantly upon saving. Sorry. Where was I? The config is reloaded instantly upon saving. So when you make a change to the configuration file and then you save it, it instantly makes those changes happen. So that's kind of cool. That's why when I originally started doing this and was changing the configuration file and it was reloading, it was whacking out Simple Screen Recorder and causing things to stop recording and this and that. So that's why I just had to kind of get it configured and just kind of cover it this way, as opposed to actually configuring it on screen. So I apologize about that, but that's just the way it's got to be. It's got multiple tiling modes. It's got window rules, intelligent transients. It's got support for EWMH compatible bars like Polybar. The key bindings are held in the configuration file. It's got tiling windows, floating windows, workspaces, moving and full screen windows, and it is mostly EWMH and ICCCM compliant. That being said, to install it, I attempted to do this in a virtual machine, and that would have made things a lot easier, but for some reason it just was not working for me in a virtual machine. I could log into it and it would come up and I would have a bar and all that stuff, but whenever I tried, none of the key bindings worked. Whenever I tried to change anything in the configuration file, it didn't take. I literally could do nothing in it. So I then decided, well, I'll just build it from source, because it gives you the option to build it from source. Obviously, it's on a GitHub. So I cloned the repository and I tried to build it, but on Void there's something going on with CMake for this specific window manager. I don't know if there's a dependency I'm missing or if something's in the wrong spot or something, but every time it gave me a error and kind of pointed towards CMake, and that stuff was missing. So I couldn't get it to build on Void. That being said, I still have my tester laptop. So I took this, I have a USB with Arco Linux Cinnamon on it. So I just did a quick dirty install of Arco Linux Cinnamon. That way I have all my systems running, everything I'm going to need already up and going, since I'm using a desktop environment as opposed to a window manager. So I installed that real quick on my tester laptop here, and then I used the AUR, which it shows right here. You can install from the AUR, and since Arco is an Arch-based distribution, I just used Yay and installed Hypr-Git and had no issues right out of the box. I got it installed. It had the desktop session already there, so when I logged in from my display manager, it was already listed there. The only thing I had to do was copy and paste the configuration file. So again, you can manually build it or you can install it from Yay, and then you got your configuration. You got a few screenshots down here. It's really clean and sleek looking, so let's just kind of jump into the config. Right here you can see the wiki page for detailed overview on the config, or refer to example config in the examples/hypr.conf. You have to use a config. Place it in home.config hypr.conf. You have to have a configuration file. When this thing builds and when you install it, it does not create a configuration file itself because it's constantly evolving. So you have to copy and paste it yourself. It is required. There is no just standard configuration file that it's going to read. If you do not have a configuration file put in your home.config hypr.conf, then you will just get a big red warning across the top, and you have no key bindings, you will have no control over anything. You will literally be able to do nothing except drop down to a TTY, and at that point you're not even using Hypr. So you need to take the example configuration file that's on their GitHub page there, and you need to copy it into home.config. Then you need to create a directory called Hypr, and then copy that example config into hypr.conf. So again, copy hypr.conf into .config hypr.conf. Then once you boot into it, you are good to go. It will boot up, it will have a bar, you will have some key bindings, and you will actually be able to start hacking on it. You have your general options for gaps, FPS for the speed of the animations. Like I said, when you launch the window, the animations that pop up, you can change the speed of those. You have different layouts. Focus when hover, i.e. focus follows mouse, is 1 or 0. So 0 is off, 1 is on. So if you have it set to 0, you will have no focus follows mouse. If you have it set to 1, you will have focus follows mouse. It's got intelligent transients, your color of your active border, color of your inactive border, and your status command. It's got window animations. You can enable them, disable them. You can do the speed of the float. You can enable cheap animations. It is highly recommended to set this to 1 because otherwise the animations are choppy. The borders, I'm not sure what the border animations were. I attempted to set that to 1 and I didn't notice any changes, so I'm not quite sure on that just yet. Or the workspaces. It's not recommended. It says right here, not really recommended. It's slow and it will bug out with compositors. So they recommend not having that one enabled. So have those two set to 0. No gaps when only one window. You can turn that on or off. So basically you can have 0 gaps. It'll just be a full screen window when you have only one window open, and then the gaps when you have multiple windows. You have your bar right here. You have enabled, so 1 or 0. 0 is disabled, 1 is enabled. You can change your height, which monitor you want it on, pad, mod pad in so the padding between the modules and the text edge. So the edge of the text here with the modules and the edge of the module, this is the padding there. No sys tray saving. Don't save the tray between reloads. So if you have stuff up in your sys tray and you reload it, then if you have this set to 1, which means no sys saving, that's what they recommend, because it will tend to bug out if you're trying to have stuff up there, and it'll end up killing your bar when you reload. So you have the background color, the high color, which is going to be your active workspace. You have your font main, which is going to be your text font, and then you have your font secondary, which is going to be your icons. You have your modules for your bar, which are these over here. So it's got starts with a few. When you actually launch and have the example config, you only have the date. I added the battery on there. It shows you how to do them. You basically set them up this way. It's got the syntax right there for them. You have certain tokens that they have right off the bat. You can do RAM, CPU, win name, and win class. I have win name right here. They call that a % token, so when you write out the command, you have to have the % sign in front of and behind the command here. And I'll show you that when I go over my configuration file. So again, you have RAM, CPU, win name, and win class. And you have some special contents, or some special modules. This is padding. Gives you a little bit of space between the modules here when you set these up. You have your key binds, which is pretty basic. It's bind and then your mod key and then the key you want, and then your dispatcher, which can be execute or kill window or whatever else, and then you have your command for if you have Firefox, you would do like I have it set to Alt-Shift-A. So I do Alt-Shift-A, execute Firefox. Pretty simple. Your mod list, you can either use Shift or you can use Super or Mod 4, Control or Alt or Mod 1, and you can mix them up. So Shift Super or Control Alt Super, you want them all capital and you want no spaces. Again, these are your dispatchers. You have exec, you have kill active, full screen, move window, move focus, move to workspace, workspace, toggle floating, split ratio. So those are your different dispatchers. And then you have your Autoexecs, which is basically your startup programs. So you can Autoexec. If you do exec, it's going to execute every time you reload the configuration file. If you do exec once, it's only going to execute when you start the window manager. So when you change your configuration file, this one's going to reload. When you change your configuration file, this one's not going to reload. It's just going to continue running. Some basic window rules, just like any other window manager for floating and tiling, and that's about it. So let's just go ahead and go on to Workspace 2 here. Let's go ahead and launch a terminal. And we are going to vim into our .config. Actually, let's clear the screen real quick and let's zoom in. So again, we're going to vim into .config, Hypr, and then hypr.conf. So this is where we need to store our configuration file. We're going to hit enter. And so if we scroll down here, we can see we have gaps in, which means gap in between windows. So if I launch another window, the gap in is going to be the gap right here. And I have it set to 5. And I also have gaps out, which is outside, set to 5. But you can see the outside gaps look narrower than the inside gaps. Well, that's because the inside gap is 5 pixels on both windows. So that's a total of 10 pixels right here. My border size is 1. You could change that if we wanted to change that to 5 as well. We could just do 5. And, oh, I hope this doesn't kill my simple screen recorder, but if we write that, now we can see we have 5 pixels. Let's do something here real quick. I'm going to launch Ranger. Okay, looks like I'm still going. So okay. Phew, I thought, man, I changed something on my configuration file. So I'm not going to change anything else on the configuration file again because I don't want to bork this recording again. But rounding, if you want to try rounded corners, you can set that to 1. So you just change rounding to 1 instead of 0, and it says it should round the corners. It didn't round them for me though. Focus when hover, that's focus follows mouse. If you change that to 0, it won't follow mouse. You have your main mod, which I have set to Alt because I use Alt for my mod key. You can change that to Super or Mod 4 or Shift or whatever else was on that list that we went over just a minute ago. That's your intelligent transients and your no unmapped saving. Down here I already have my wallpaper launching. I use nitrogen, but exec once means every time I start up my window manager, it's going to execute nitrogen and display my wallpaper. This is going to be my layout right here. No gaps when only equals 0. That means even when I only have one window, I'm going to have gaps. If I set this to 1, when I only have one window open, there's going to be no gaps around the outside of the window. This is the bar. The bar is set to 20. That's the bar height. The monitor is set to monitor 0. I'm on a laptop, so I only have one monitor. It is enabled. If this was on 0, it would turn the bar off. ModPad in, that was the padding between the edge of the module and the edge of the text. So if I had my background a different color here, you'd be able to see it easier. But if this was set to 0, it would literally mean that the edge of the module was right at the edge of the text, and so it would look pretty ugly and be hard to read. So you can change that to have as much padding there as you want. No tray saving. This doesn't save the tray between reloads, so if you have something running in the tray, then it won't save it during reloads. The font main, which is the text font, I have set to Hermit. You can see up here is my Hermit font. Font secondary is Nerd font. That's going to be for any icons you have. So color background is 222222. That's what I have the background of the bar set to. And then the high color high right here, is for your active workspace. And I have that set to that blue color. Now this, you'll see right here, this says workspaces. Well, this is the non-active workspaces, this 1 and 9. So it's going to be module. It's on the left-hand side. There is no icon. That's what this is right here. You can either leave that blank or put an X. And the color for the this one, the background is 8000FF, and then the foreground is obviously white. And that's the workspaces that are inactive. The module padding left means I have a pad of left, or a pad of 10 on the left side of this module right here, which is the tray. And then module right, I have right here, which is the date. So I have module equals right, and then I have comma, no space, comma, because I have no icon, and then I have the color of the text, and then I have the color of the background, and then I have the refresh rate, and then you have your command. Now when you run a command, if we go back to number 1, if you run a command, scroll back up to the bar here, let me find it again, right here. So if you run a command, you have to have the $sign at the beginning and the end of the command. If you're doing one of these percent tokens down here, like this window name right here, you have to have the percent sign at the beginning and the end of the command. So if we look back over here, you can see I am running the date command, and then I have the format of the date here, but I have the $sign and I have the $sign. And then I have a module pad right 10, which means I have on this module right here, I have padding of 10 to the right hand side to give me a gap between the two. And then I have my battery, which is module equals right, and then I have, instead of having an icon, I just have battery written. And then I have the font color, which is that blue, and then I have the background color, which is the same as the bar, and then it's refreshing at 1000 milliseconds. And then again, I'm running a script, so that script is battery, and so that command is I have a $sign before it and I have a $sign after it, and that will show my battery right there. And then I have module equals center, which is going to be this module right here. So I have module equals center. I have no icon, so I just have comma, comma. And then I have the color of the text, which again is the blue, the color of the background, and then I have refresh at 1000 milliseconds, and then I have percent, win name percent, because if we look right here, that's a percent token. Win name, that's a percent token, which means percent tokens have to have a percent sign at the beginning and the end. So let's go back to number 2. So that gives me the window name right here in the bar, and that's it for my bar. So then you come down here and you have color.active underscore border is going to be your active border color. Color.inactive underscore border is going to be your inactive border. You have your animations. You can enable them at 1 or disable them with 0. You can change the speed, how fast that window slides in and out of place when you launch a new window. So that window, how it slides in like that, and how it slides out, you can change the speed of that with this variable or this integer right here. Says not recommended for the workspaces, and the borders didn't do anything for me when I changed that, so I'm not quite sure what happens there. We have some window rules here for floating windows and for monitors. What monitor we want something to launch on. You can change window size. Basically, that's pretty self-explanatory. You just window rule equals, and then what you want it to do, and then class or role, and then what it actually is. And then we have keybinds. Keybinds are pretty simple. Like I said, I have my modifier set to alt, so you just type bind equals your modifier, or modifiers if you're going to do shift like this, alt shift, one word, but you would do bind equals modifier, alt shift, comma, no space, and then what key you're pressing, and then comma, and then what you want it to do. Like this is Workspace, this says bind alt F full screen, this says bind alt down move focus, so that's what you want it to do. Bind alt G execute, and then comma, and then what you want to execute. So like this is bind alt return exec extern. So pretty simple syntax on getting those key bindings to work. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. But other than that, if you actually let's go to a empty workspace here. We'll go to 4 and let's launch some windows. So Q, we're gonna launch a terminal there, and pretty cool. And then if we open D menu and do Brave, we can launch another window there. And then if we want to float and we press Alt or Mod F, that gives us full screen. This takes us back from full screen. If you press your mod key and the arrow, it will switch the windows around. I believe mod shift arrow or mod alt arrow, or actually let's go back to the, I think this was one that I saw that was wacky and I didn't change it yet. That was up here. Yeah, see in their example they have bind alt left move window left, and they have bind alt left moved focus left. So one of these should be alt shift or alt control or something like that, because they basically have the same key binding set to do two different things. But if you have it set to like alt shift left move focus, that will change focus between windows instead of just having it move the window. But yeah, so it's pretty simple syntax. It's a pretty cool window manager. Let's go back to Workspace 4, and let's go ahead and switch the focus here. Let's do an Alt or Mod C. That's going to kill the window. Yeah, it's really cool. So let's show you the layout here. We'll launch another one of these. We'll just keep launching some terminals here, and you can kind of see what the that's the layout that it has set from the factory, I guess you'd call it. But like I said, I don't use more than 2, maybe 3 windows at a time, so this layout is fine for me. But it's really kind of cool. It's really simple to configure that bar. It's really simple to configure the key bindings in this thing to get things up and going, and it's really just kind of a neat window manager. So yeah, check it out. Again, let's go back to the web page, or the GitHub page. It is GitHub and Vaxerski and Hypr. So if you go to GitHub/Vaxerski, that's this guy right here, or gal, or whoever it is, Vaxerski, and then go to their repositories and click on Hypr, and that's it. Check out their configuration file they've got in there, check out some of the other stuff they got going on, and play around with it. It's really kind of cool, and I think you'll like it. So that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Get some good rest tonight. Weekend is almost here. Love y'all. God bless.